Hello, everybody. My name is Luke Menkes, and I am the host of this brand new podcast called Newtown Big Dreams. Now, many of you listening to this have been listening to me for a couple of years now under the title I Love Kelowna. And what I'm doing here is I'm just switching the topic, just tweaking it, not really switching the topic, but kind of broadening our horizons. So we're going to start to include people from way beyond Kelowna into the rest of Canada, the United States, and the entire English-speaking world. So I want to tell you a little bit about the relaunch and tell you a bit about myself and about this podcast. So first of all, my name is Luke, and I was born and raised in Toronto. In 1995, I left Toronto and moved to the Dominican Republic. I became fluent in Spanish and spent 2 years after that, 96, 97, in South Florida. So I did some public speaking in Florida, and I really tried to maintain friendships with Spanish-speaking people so I could maintain my fluency in Spanish, and I was pretty much bilingual. They say you could call yourself bilingual if you can dream and imagine and conceive of things, like actually have conversations in your head fully in that language without having to translate to your native language. So, there's that. Now, from Dominican Republic, I moved to South Florida, and from South Florida, I moved to the Cayman Islands, where I lived from 97 to 2008, and I became a legal resident of the United States, and I became a citizen of the Cayman Islands, and I still am a citizen of the Cayman Islands. From there, I moved to Edmonton, Alberta. Then from there to Nelson, BC, and from Nelson to where I'm now in Kelowna, which is about 4 hours drive from the coast. Vancouver is, I believe, the second largest city in Canada now. So this podcast, it's always been about interviewing entrepreneurs and thought leaders and people who are involved in our community. And it's been a great show. We've done well over 100 interviews, I think 163 interviews. And we had a nominations process. So at the end of every show, we would ask people, who would you like to nominate to come on the show? And the only criteria was they had to agree with the title, I Love Kelowna. So if they hate Kelowna, they can't come on the show. They didn't have to live here, but they had to have some kind of connection to the city and an appreciation for it. And the second criteria was whatever that guest wanted, anyone that guest would find interesting to hear me interview would be a good candidate. And that's how I expanded my social circle. I was able to meet dozens and dozens of people that I wouldn't normally meet because I'm generally an introvert. I do love people, but I find it emotionally draining to go out and have to meet people and, have small talk. So this podcast has been really great for me to meet tons of people. One thing I noticed was over 90% of the guests have all come from someplace else. Kelowna is just that kind of a city where most of the people that live here are from someplace else. So one of the things I wanted to do with this podcast is expand it past Kelowna, because we have so many great conversations on all kinds of topics, mostly to do with entrepreneurship, but also to do with starting a new life. So people moved here for business opportunities. People moved here for romance. People moved here just to get a fresh start in life. For all kinds of reasons, people have moved here. And I thought, I've done this now. I've lived in 4 countries, about 10 or more cities within those 4 countries. And I've started businesses and social life from scratch every single time. And as an introverted person, and when I was younger, I was quite shy, this was really challenging. This was really difficult. So from my own perspective, I love to hear from people who have done the same thing. And that's what made this show so interesting for me. But I thought, if you don't know about Kelowna, and it's an amazing city, and I'll talk about it a lot, but if you don't know about it and you're moving from, say, Toronto to small town Ontario, you're not going to necessarily tune into this show because you think it's about Kelowna. So really what this show is about is starting a new life in a new city. So that applies to 95% of the guests we've already had on the show. But I want it to apply to people outside of Kelowna and our region as well, because I think I have a lot to teach and I know the right questions to ask from other people who are moving to a new city to start a new life, because I've been through it and I've had the experience of over 160 interviews with people, 95% of whom did that same thing, started a brand new life. So I think it's a really interesting show. People have told me that, but we're trying to expand the reach to go past Kelowna. So the new title of the show is New Town, Big Dreams. Tell me what you think of the title. I think it's good. It's catchy and it kind of makes sense. Kind of tells you what the show is all about. So I'm doing this because I find that my introversion needs to be tempered. Like we all need social interaction. And I find that I get deep in thought and deep into my books. And I don't really stretch myself personally unless I'm out talking to people on a regular basis. That's the reason I'm doing this. Also, I love to learn and I love to hear the stories of other people. I find it fascinating that we have so much in common and yet so little in common. Like everybody who came here, nobody had the pathway that I did. Toronto, Dominican Republic, Miami, Cayman Islands, Edmonton. Like nobody had anything close to that pathway, but they all had an interesting pathway to get to Kelowna. So this show is for anyone who is thinking of moving to a new city or who is about to, or who has already done that, right? So that's who this show is for. If you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking of starting your life over, or you've just done it, you're going to want to tune into this show because those are the kind of people we're going to be talking to. And like I said, I moved to Kelowna 9 years ago now, and I still learn something new every single episode when I'm interviewing these people. So to me, it's a great topic. So if you want to start a new life in a new city, or you're about to, you want to listen to this show. My biggest challenge from this topic, honestly, is just doing it on a consistent basis. If you've been listening to me for 2 years, you know it has been a little bit sporadic with the episode releases. So that's my biggest challenge. I'm just telling you straight up, and any advice you can give me will be fantastic. Now, my biggest challenge from the relocation thing, like I said, was being an introverted person and finding it really emotionally draining to build up a social network and a business and in some cases a romantic life. So that, to me, that was a real challenge. It was, but some of those moves are the things that I'm most proud of in my life. And what I learned from it was it can be done, and it can be done successfully. So not everything was rainbows and butterflies. I had some spectacular failures with business and romance and other things. But I can see patterns from when I succeeded moving to a new city and where I failed moving to a new city. And so that's what I want to talk about. That's what I've learned from this challenge, and that's what I want to talk to you about. So we're still going to be releasing old episodes. We have several in the can, and they are what I would call evergreen episodes, which means that the topics are pertinent. Even though we might be talking about something that's going on, like with COVID or in the economy, we're talking mostly in general terms as far as principles, as far as how to rule your own life, right? How to be successful, the correct mindset to have, how to make adjustments, how to deal with obstacles, how to deal with difficult people, culture shock, things like that. How to get connected. One of the things I learned in smaller towns was it's a real challenge to start a new business because people are kind of set in their ways. And in a lot of cases, they can view you as competition. Even if you're a real friendly, cooperative person, not everybody likes change. And I think that applies especially to small towns. That was a big challenge. So that is it for episode number 1. I guess it would be episode 107 of the old podcast. I'm got to figure out how we're going to number these. But I hope you liked it. Please give me some feedback. You can send me an email to luke@lukemenkes.ca, and there's a link right within the podcast where you can send me an email, and you could also make a small contribution to the show if you like it and you want to help me to be able to spend more time doing this. Thanks for your attention today, and I will talk to you in a few days. Bye-bye.